My husband demanded answers when I couldn't handle the reception at his sister's wedding. But he had no idea what I'd been through. I had known Callum for 11 years, loved him for 9, married him for 4. In all that time, I thought I understood exactly who he was. Steady, logical, the kind of man who could walk into any room and make it feel smaller just by being calm inside it. That steadiness was one of the reasons I fell for him. But steadiness, I was learning, could sometimes look a lot like coldness when you needed warmth. His sister Delia had been planning her wedding for almost 2 years. 2 years of venue tours and seating charts and fabric swatches spread across our kitchen table on Sunday mornings. I liked Delia. She was louder than Callum, funnier, quicker to cry, and quicker to laugh. She had the kind of energy that could fill a room the way sunlight fills a room. Not always comfortable, but impossible to ignore. And she loved Callum fiercely, the way younger siblings sometimes love older ones, with a mix of admiration and the constant need to prove she didn't need him. I wanted to be there for her day. I genuinely did. What nobody knew, not Callum, not Delia, not a single person at that wedding except my doctor, was that 6 days before the ceremony, I had lost a pregnancy. We hadn't told anyone yet. It was early, just past 9 weeks, and we were being careful the way people are careful when they've already been hurt before. This was our second loss in 14 months. The first one we had told people about, and the grief of going through that publicly, watching people search for the right words, while I searched for a reason to keep standing. I hadn't recovered from that experience of loss as much as I thought I had. So this time, we kept it private. Callum knew I was pregnant. What he didn't know was that on a Tuesday morning, while he was traveling for work, I had started cramping, called my doctor, and by that evening, it was over. I had planned to tell him when he got home Thursday, but Thursday he came through the door already talking about final seating arrangements and the car service. And did I know Delia was upset because the florist had sent the wrong shade of white? And somehow, the moment passed. Then Friday passed. And then it was the morning of the wedding. I told myself I could do it. I had gotten very good in the past 14 months at telling myself I could do things. There's something nobody prepares you for about silent grief. It doesn't stay silent inside you. It just finds quieter ways to be loud. In the way your hands shake when you're pouring coffee. In the way a song on the radio can take your knees out from under you. Carrying pain alone might protect the people around you, but it slowly erodes the ground you're standing on. The ceremony was beautiful. I will say that honestly. Delia was radiant in a way that made several people cry before she even reached Marcus at the end of the aisle. And Marcus looked at her with the kind of expression that makes you believe, briefly, that everything in the world is going to be fine. I sat beside Callum and I held his hand and I kept my breathing even and I thought, I can do this. I am doing this. The trouble started at the reception. It wasn't anything dramatic at first, just noise, a wall of it, music and laughter and glasses clinking, all of it compressing into a single dense pressure behind my eyes. The lights felt too bright. The room felt too warm. I found my seat and smiled at everyone around me and had one glass of sparkling water and thought, if I could just get through the first hour. Callum's mother, Renata, leaned across the table toward me. She was a well-meaning woman who communicated mostly through cheerful intrusion. "Mara, you look pale. Are you eating enough? You've lost weight since I saw you in the spring." "I'm fine, Renata. Just a little tired from the week." "Ha, you young people and you're tired." She waved her hand. "You should see what tired looks like at 63. Callum squeezed my hand under the table. I squeezed back. Okay. Then came the toasts. Then the first dance. Then someone turned the music up and the floor filled with people, and the room became something I can only describe as a living thing pressing against me from all sides. My heart rate climbed. I felt sweat at the base of my neck. I picked up my water glass, and my hand wasn't entirely steady, and I set it back down. "You okay?" Callum asked, leaning close. "I need some air, just for a minute."
I stood up too fast. The room tilted. I put a hand on the back of my chair, and someone nearby asked if I was all right, and I said, yes, I'm fine, and walked toward the hallway as steadily as I could manage. I made it to a quiet corridor off the main hall. There was a bench against the wall. I don't know who put it there, but I sat on it and dropped my head into my hands and breathed. Just breathed. In through the nose, out through the mouth. My doctor had shown me the technique. 4 counts in, hold for 4, out for 6. I don't know how long I sat there. Long enough that the trembling in my hands began to ease. Long enough that I started to feel like myself again, around the edges at least. And then Callum was in the hallway. His face, when I looked up at him, was not the face of a worried husband. It was the face of a man who had been fielding questions about where his wife had gone and had run out of comfortable answers. "Mara, what's going on? Delia noticed you left the table." "I just needed a minute. I'm coming back." "You've been out here for almost 20 minutes. My mother thinks you're sick. Delia's trying not to look worried on her wedding day. Callum." My voice came out very flat. "Give me 1 more minute." He crouched down in front of me, and I truly believed, that he was going to take my hands and ask me what was wrong. Really ask me, the way he used to. Instead, "I need you to come back in there. This is Delia's day. Whatever is going on, I'm not dismissing it. We can talk about it later. Can you just do this for her?" Something cold moved through me. "Do you think I don't want to be in there?" I said quietly. "I don't know, Mara. Do you? Because from the outside..." "From the outside." I repeated his words back to him. "Callum. From the outside. I'm not trying to fight with you. I'm asking you to come back to the table." He stood. He held out his hand, and I looked at it. That hand I had held for 9 years. And something in me cracked open, and I started to cry. Not delicate crying, the kind of crying that had been living behind a locked door for 6 days and had finally found the handle. We have all, at some point, asked someone who is struggling to simply hold it together a little longer. Usually we do it because we're overwhelmed ourselves, or because we can't yet see the full weight of what someone is carrying. But hold it together is one of the most isolating things you can say to a person already breaking, because it tells them their pain is inconvenient. And inconvenient pain has a way of becoming invisible pain, which is the most dangerous kind. "Mara, hey." His voice shifted immediately.
The frustration drained out of it. He sat beside me on the bench. "Hey, what's happening right now?" I couldn't answer for a full minute. I just cried. He put his arm around me and let me, which was the right thing to do, and I felt the shape of everything I hadn't told him pressing against the inside of my chest like something that needed to get out. When I could speak, I kept my voice low. "I lost the pregnancy, Callum." The silence that followed was so complete, I could hear the bass from the music in the next room. "What?" he said. "Tuesday, while you were away. I woke up and it had started, and I called Dr. Ewan, and by the time you came home Thursday, it was over. I was going to tell you, but the timing was..." I stopped. There was never a right moment, and I didn't want to ruin the wedding. I thought I could hold it together. He didn't say anything. I looked at his face and watched something collapse in it. "Tuesday," he said. "You've been carrying that since Tuesday. Alone." I didn't want to do the same thing as last time, telling everyone while it was still happening, having to manage everyone else's reaction while I was still... My voice broke. I just wanted to protect us this time. "Mara." His voice was barely above a whisper. "I am us. You didn't have to protect us from me." We sat in that corridor for a long time. Long enough that his cousin Petra came to check on us. Petra, who was kind in a way that asked nothing in return, and Callum looked up at her and said very quietly, "Give us a few more minutes." She nodded and went back, and she must have said something to Delia because Delia didn't come. Not yet. "I'm so sorry," Callum said. "I'm sorry I came out here the way I did. I'm sorry I wasn't there on Tuesday. I'm sorry I made you feel like you had to. You didn't know. That's not an excuse. I should have known something was wrong. I should have looked closer."
I didn't argue with him. He was right in a way, and in another way he wasn't. And neither of those things mattered as much as the fact that we were finally in the same room with the truth. "We're going to get through this," he said. "Together. Not you alone in a hallway." "I know." "Do you? Because you've been alone in this hallway for 6 days, Mara." I leaned my head against his shoulder. "I know. I think I just needed someone to come find me." Grief shared is not grief halved. Anyone who has been through real loss knows that's too simple. But grief shared is grief witnessed. And there is a profound difference between pain that is seen and pain that exists in the dark by itself. We are not meant to carry our heaviest weight in silence. Asking for help is not weakness. It is, in fact, the most honest and courageous thing a person in pain can do. We did go back in. After another 10 minutes, after Callum had gotten me a glass of cold water and stood in the hallway holding my hand without saying anything while I drank it. Delia met us at the entrance to the main hall. She had her dress hiked up slightly in one hand, and her eyes were scanning my face the way only another woman can scan a face. "Are you okay?" she asked me directly. Not Callum. Me. "I will be," I said. "I'm sorry to disappear on your day." She shook her head, once, decisively, the way she did when she'd already made up her mind about something. "Don't. I don't need an apology. I need to know you're okay." She looked at Callum.
Is she okay? She'll be okay, he said. We both will. Something passed between Delia and me. Not words, just a look. The kind of look that means, I don't know what happened, but I know it was real, and you don't owe me an explanation. She reached out and squeezed my hand once, hard. And then Marcus appeared behind her and looped his arm around her waist and pulled her back toward the dance floor, and that was that. We returned to the table. Renata looked at me with barely concealed curiosity. Feeling better? She asked. Much better, thank you. She studied me for a moment, with the particular scrutiny of a woman who has seen enough of life to recognize when something has happened that she's not going to be told about. Then she patted my arm once and went back to her dessert, and I was grateful for the grace of it. Callum kept his hand over mine for the rest of the evening, not conspicuously, just present, the way warmth is present. Petra came and sat beside me later, while Callum was pulled into a toast with old friends. She was one of those people whose company required nothing of you. She could sit in silence and make silence feel like enough. You doing okay? She asked. Getting there. She nodded. She didn't push. That was the thing about Petra. She understood that some answers need room to form before they can be given. Delia's happy, I said. That's what tonight is. Delia's very happy, Petra agreed. Marcus is good for her. Yes. I watched them on the dance floor. Delia at something, her head thrown back in that unguarded way she had. I'm glad she gets to have this. The gladness was real. That surprised me a little, that grief and gladness could exist in the same body at the same moment, like two weather systems occupying the same sky. But there it was. I was in pain, and I was genuinely glad for Delia. And I was exhausted, and I was grateful for the hand resting over mine. And I was heartbroken. And I was still here. That's the thing about real life. It doesn't sort itself into one feeling at a time. We often wait for the pain to be over before we allow ourselves to also appreciate what is good. But life doesn't offer clean, separate chapters. Joy and grief share pages. The ability to hold both without letting one erase the other might be the most important emotional skill we ever develop. You are allowed to be heartbroken and grateful at the same time. You are allowed to show up imperfectly and still be exactly where you're supposed to be. We drove home that night in the quiet way that follows a day that has taken something out of you and put something back in its place. The roads were dark. The radio was low. Callum drove with one hand on the wheel and one hand on mine. We should have talked about it sooner, he said. Not accusatory, just honest. I know. I kept telling myself I was protecting you. I don't need protecting from our life. I understand that. I think I was also protecting myself. If I said it out loud, made it real, I paused. It was already real. I was just delaying the weight of it. He was quiet for a moment. I don't want us to do that. Keep things from each other because we're trying to manage everything alone. Neither do I. Whatever happens next, whatever we decide about trying again or taking a break, whatever we need, I want us both in the room. Not one of us carrying it solo. I want that too. Another mile of dark road. I should have noticed on Thursday, he said. When I got home, something was off, and I talked about seating charts instead of looking at you. You didn't know there was something to look for. Still. Callum. I turned toward him as much as my seatbelt allowed. I love you, and we're going to be okay. But we both need to do better at this, at saying the hard thing out loud before it becomes too heavy to carry. That's on both of us. He glanced at me, then back at the road. Yeah, it is. The house was quiet when we got home. The kind of quiet that isn't empty, the kind that is full of the fact that two people are in it. I changed out of the dress I had spent the whole evening bracing myself inside. Callum made tea neither of us particularly wanted, but both of us drank. We sat on the couch in the low light, and I told him everything. The Tuesday morning, the call to Dr. Ewan, the way the hours had passed, the way I had rehearsed telling him and then lost my nerve, and then lost my nerve again. He listened. He didn't try to fix it, or reframe it, or make it smaller. He listened, and he said, "I'm sorry," and he meant it. And that was enough. That was what I had needed from the beginning. Not solutions, not management. Just a husband who could hear things. At some point I said, "I'm sorry I fell apart at Delia's wedding." He looked at me. You didn't fall apart. You held it together for 6 days alone, and then sat in a hallway and cried. That's not falling apart. That's being human. I thought about that, about the difference between falling apart and being human, about how often we punish ourselves for the second thing by calling it the first. She texted, I said. I'd felt my phone buzz in the car. What did she say? I unlocked the phone and read it aloud. I don't know what tonight was about for you two, but I love you and you're my family, and I'm here whenever you're ready. Also, Marcus says the same, except he said it with a thumbs up emoji, which is very Marcus. Callum laughed. A real laugh. The first one I'd heard from him all day. And then I laughed, and it felt like something cracking open in the best possible way, like the first window opened in a room that's been closed all winter. There was still grief ahead. I knew that. The kind of loss we had been through doesn't resolve in one evening of honesty, one long drive home, one cup of tea on a couch. There would be harder days, appointments, conversations, mornings that cost more than I wanted to spend. But we would be in the room together, both of us. And that, I was finally understanding, made all the difference between a weight that crushes and a weight that can be carried. If there is one thing I want you to take from this, the people who love you cannot carry what they cannot see. You cannot be fully loved if you are hiding the realest parts of yourself, even when you think you're doing it to protect them. Silence can look like strength from the outside, but from the inside, it is a room with no windows and no door. Open the door. Let someone in. You were never supposed to stand there alone. If this story moved you or made you feel seen, give it a like. It helps more people find these kinds of stories. And if you want honest, human storytelling, hit subscribe. We'll be right here.